Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the 90th episode of the Trading Without Borders podcast with Omobi. In today's episode, we will resume discussions on the AfCFTA Investment Protocol, and we are going to look at the provisions on expropriation. What does the AfCFTA say concerning that? How does the AfCFTA intend to deal with expropriation of investment, which is a major concern to any investor? What will when a state party or when a country's government decides to nationalize or how will this be dealt with under the AfCFTA? So that's what we're looking at, and we will introduce that today. Then the likelihood that we might finish it next week or next year, because the last episode for this year is going to be next week, and I may continue discussions on it, or I move it to next year. And so let's go right into it. Under Article 19 of the agreement, state parties shall not directly or indirectly expropriate or nationalize investments in their territory except it for a public purpose. It's in accordance with due process that is pursuant to the procedure established by the national laws of that state party, and it must not be in a discriminatory manner, and it must also be a fair and adequate compensation which must be paid within a reasonable period of time in accordance with Article 21. And of course, taking into account how do you assess a reasonable period of time is going to be on a case-by-case basis in accordance with national laws and regulations of that state party. And also goes on to define direct expropriation and indirect expropriation. And a direct expropriation occurs when an investment is nationalized or expropriated directly through a formal transfer of ownership or outright seizure by the host country government. So this is when an investor and the host country government, there's a formal transfer from the investor to the host country government, or the host country government outrightly seizes the investment. So that's a direct expropriation. Let's look at what an indirect expropriation is. An indirect expropriation occurs when there are measures or a series of measures that have an equivalent effect of a direct expropriation without a formal transfer of title or outright seizure of the investment, but where a measure or series of measures has an adverse effect on the economic value of an investment, that does not establish the fact that an indirect expropriation has occurred. And it also goes on to say that a series of measures to determine if an equivalent effect of expropriation has occurred, it's going to be on a case-by-case basis. That means to determination of where there are a measure or a series of measures by a host country government has an effect that is equivalent to expropriation has to be done on a case-by-case basis, fact-based inquiry, and it has to take into consideration the following: 1, the duration of the measure or series of measures by a state party, and 2, the character of the measure or series of measures, notably their object, context, and intent. Okay, so this is where I will stop for today. We will look at compensation and exceptions to expropriation in our next discussion concerning the protocol on investment. And as usual, the podcast is for educational purposes only. And if you need to discuss more or you want to talk about anything concerning the episode, you'd like to get more information, please reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm Mobola Dekola, and I'm hoping everyone is looking forward to the holidays. I'm really looking forward to it. And this is the next episode. After this is going to be the last episode for the year, and we're going to wrapping up for the Christmas holidays. And until next week, I say to you, bye-bye.